Hi, my wife and I just purchased yesterday a brand spankin' new Cub Cadet. XT1 is the model. I have no idea where that stands in its lineup. Purchased it at Rona. Paid, it was on for 15% off. You could scratch and save for a chance of getting more off. I figured I would just do a kind of a side-by-side with our tried and very, very true Craftsman YT4000, which everything I've ever encountered on this machine, it is just as my snowblower. Same brand, Craftsman. I bought a Craftsman snowblower. This one is a rebadged Husqvarna. I'm not sure what model it is. Everything right up to the deck. There's a Husqvarna dealer in town, and I find it a great deal easier to buy belts for the snowblower. Like, that thing is an absolute monster. 347 cc. Just an absolute powerhouse, and it doesn't stop for anything, as I found out with picking up railway stones at the end of my driveway. It doesn't stall the engine. You just get a quick grunt and then your belt is basically going to get vacuumed out of the belly pan. So I've had to go for belts for that sucker a few times, and we crossed the product codes just as we did with this lawnmower, and they were both in fact just rebadged Husqvarna. The Craftsman has 307, and just get you to focus there, 307.6 hours, and it's powered by a 724 cc Briggs. It was the largest tractor we could afford when we bought it. I think we paid after tax $2,400. Bought it at Sears when we bought, just like the same week we bought the house. So we wanted to make sure we got a good unit that would do what we wanted it to do. We have 5.5 acres, and a lot of it was really overgrown. So we wanted to make sure we bought a tractor that was going to be up to the job, and this one certainly was. Have had zero real issues with it outside of the usual belts and stuff like that, considering the work we were putting it through. I drove over a nail with it. That's not really the tractor's fault. So push snow in the wintertime. It's a solid starter. Frame rails are good and heavy. I never really have any issues with them. Sort of just going to do like a side-by-side comparison here. So we got frame rail thickness of, if I can get in there, I'll just go from the front, it's probably the same all the way. Frame rail thickness of nothing, because evidently my battery's dead. Let's close the hood and try that again. Grab a piece of frame rail thickness is 0.2 millimeters. Or that's not 1 thou. I'm going to edit that out. Okay, so we got frame rail thickness of 0.09. Yeah, 0.09 inches. That is the bracket for the snowplow. Pushes snow like no one's business. As far as tractors go, I'm sure there's some of you guys out there that have quads that do a bit better of a job, but I mean, for a garden tractor, it'll push snow right over top of the blade. And I'd usually take mounds at the end of the driveway, and you just drive right up onto them. All around, these are, I think, two pretty comparable machines. Outside of engine size, our Cub Cadet has 2 hours on it. 2.2 hours, brand spankin. It was used yesterday, and I let the old lady take the first kick at the cat with it. She likes it. This guy is powered by a 597cc Kohler. It is a single cylinder, 12-liter gas tank, and that also has a 12-liter gas tank. We haven't run the first tank of gas through. It's just under half now, so let's say 2.2 hours. Let's say it'll cut modestly, you know, mixed bag, not really cutting heavy, not really cutting light kind of thing. I'd imagine it'll cut for about 4 hours. This Craftsman here, just a little under 4 hours, 3.5 hours. But the engine's also bigger. It's also a twin cylinder, and this guy gets awful thirsty when you're really laying the boots to it. We haven't had this one long enough to be able to tell. I'd imagine it gets something of the same. Maybe not as exaggerated, of course, as the twin. But we're not going to even compare the two in terms of power. There's just no comparison to be had. I was trying this one today. I pulled the drag through the yard here with it. The hydrostatic drive on the Cub Cadet is quieter. Like, it's still a little audible, which I guess seems to be the norm, but not as audible as the one on the Craftsman. However, the drive on the Craftsman, I don't even know if you guys are going to be able to see in there. That's the drive on the Craftsman. The drive on the Craftsman is a bit taller and seems to be, like, just dimensionally speaking anyway, just a hair larger than that on the Cub Cadet. So I'd imagine that's probably where a bit of the noise comes from. That, or the 300 and change hours of pulling the drag around the yard and pushing snow in the winter may have something to do with that. In terms of creature comforts, I do appreciate the fact that the Cub Cadet has located their cup holder on the side opposite the grass chute. Unlike the Craftsman, where it's on the same side as your grass chute. I don't know whose idea that was, but it's not a very good one, because you end up with crap in your beer, cutting your grass. As far as controls go, they're both different. I mean, throttle's located up here under the steering wheel. The PTO on-off is located up by the steering wheel on the Craftsman, light switch. Whereas on the Cub Cadet, they are, well, the throttle's under the steering wheel, keys on the side opposite. One complaint my wife had is for this unit to cut in reverse. Okay, start the engine, right? Flip the key back one, and then you got to push this button. Now, when she was saying, when you get off the unit, put the park brake on, jump off. Let's say you got to move something out of the way, a dog toy, whatever. This red light will shut off, indicating that you can no longer cut in reverse. And she said you got to go through the whole process again. You have to stop the PTO, or stop the blades rather, put it back and forward, back one, push the button again, and then the light will come on. Whereas with the Craftsman, all you have to do to cut in reverse is just turn the key to reverse, and then you can do whatever you want. You can stop the unit, jump off. As long as you stop the blades, the engine will continue to run. Basically then you get on it, kick the blades back on, and off you go. As far as I'm concerned, that's probably a pretty small complaint, but some people are pretty particular. Frame rails on this guy Frame rail height, obviously, is different on the Cub Cadet. They're not as tall. They look to be made out of the same gauge material. So, let's find a good spot to measure. I'll be at the front again. Yeah. Oh, that's not right. Now, they are made out of exactly the same material. I had to move it to the same spot, so they're probably both just 10 thou. This isn't exactly the best caliper on the planet. And we got a frame rail height. Let's go just behind the motor plate. And we got a frame rail height of, come on phone, focus, 2.57. And on the Craftsman, we got a frame rail height of, I can't go just behind the motor, obviously. It's boxed. It's topped like way back. This one isn't topped back very far. So I have to measure. I can't measure with my plate in place, obviously. So we'll just minus 10 thou. And we'll minus 10 thou from our measurement here. Push it up. It's hard to do this with one hand. 3.26. So I'll say 3.16 for just to take away for the top plate, because I don't want to include that in the measurement. That's not fair. So we got 3.26 or 3.16 tall frame rail, 10 thou thick, and we got oops. Let's just call it 2. I don't know, it's 2.574. Let's just call it 2.6. Tall frame rail for the Cub Cadet. So, you know, the frame's not quite as heavy as the Craftsman, but I don't think these two units were designed to do the same sort of work. So, that's that on the frame. It would appear, actually, that the snowplow mounts go in probably exactly the same spot. Now this one boasts cast iron front axle. Front axles on this sucker, or I guess the cross beam, is pretty hefty. Kingpins are pretty beefy looking. Steering linkages are definitely beefy looking, considering what I do with this sucker. Pretty similar here on this, on the Cub. Not much difference. They're not as thick as the ones on the Craftsman. But again, we didn't buy this tractor to replace the Craftsman with. We didn't buy this tractor to push snow in the wintertime. We bought this tractor to cut grass. We just wanted something that wasn't going to break and was going to be very nice to cut our grass with. So I think the Craftsman's built a bit heavier. A complaint my wife had, I guess I use the term complaint loosely. When you're cutting grass, this grass chute is inclined to allow debris to come up at you, not like directly at your face, but it'll blow, and if the wind's kind of blowing against you, it like loops around, and you eat a lot of dust and debris and stuff, as you can see by all the dirt and grass leavings and stuff like this. It's not like you're wearing it or anything, but that could be all part and parcel to just the overall length of that deflector, because the one on the Craftsman's quite long and it's like dug into the ground. I don't know, that could just be from a few years of use. In terms of, I'm not going to make the power comparison, like I said earlier. There just isn't one. This Briggs & Stratton is dynamite. If you're looking for something that sips fuel, though, look somewhere else. This thing, like I said, gets awful thirsty. Whereas this one, I imagine it could if you really laid the shtick to it. But 2.5 hours of cutting and pulling the drag and stuff like that, I'd have burnt a little hair over half a tank. I'd say that's pretty good. Steering, ease of use. Steering ease of use. I mean, the old lady says that this one turns a little sharper. I think this one has a 10-inch tight turn and this one has an 8-inch tight turn. It's really maneuverable. The Craftsman is slightly faster, and I mean, you use the term loosely. It's like, I don't know, if we were to, we raced them, I don't know, about 50 yards yesterday, and I think the difference was one mower length for the Craftsman ahead of the Cub Cadet, and then in reverse it was half a length for the Cub Cadet over the Craftsman. So I think, I don't know, roughly speaking, I'd say the difference, there's probably an imbalance basically in the way the Craftsman is set up. I would imagine that could be adjusted out. To be honest, it's really inconsequential. They both cut amazing. This machine cuts absolutely perfect, even at high speed. The deck doesn't bounce. It throws the grass away. Not really much more to say other than that. I mean, our yard is pretty well cut. No deck bouncing, no nothing. It'll cut at its maximum forward speed. I'd imagine that would remain fact until you know, the grass gets so thick that your blade speed's affected. I mean, even this one's the same way. Of course, you need quite a bit more grass to affect it, but what ends up happening is the grass hasn't had time to be ejected before you're filling the deck with fresh grass again, and you're not pulling the grass fibers up anymore. So you end up getting just a really wishy-washy sort of cut. This one does the same thing. So that's probably just, you know, user kind of thing. Slow down when the grass is thick. I would imagine nobody needs to be told that if you've had a unit before. The only difference would be that engine does not slow down for anything really, and this one does. A ton of power, more than I thought with the Kohler. This engine is just a torque monster. I was in the back 40, like way back there, by like way back by the farmer's field. Can't even zoom that far. Way in there, and I was cutting that, and it's probably 3 feet, and it did really well. There was virtually no protest from the engine at all while cutting. The odd, you know, deck piling up, and you usually get that woof of grass that comes out of it, and then the subsequent engine load. But the engine was a torque factory and did absolutely beautifully in there. Deck heights, the PTO control and the deck height control. This one's got a lot more deck height adjustments. It goes from 1 to 4, but I think there's, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 deck positions, as opposed to 10. I don't know, marginal difference, I guess. You know what, honestly, when the lever's in the middle and when the lever's in the middle, they cut at exactly the same height. So I really don't know what to tell you there. You know what, this might look cool to have 12 possible deck positions as opposed to just shitty old 10. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever met somebody that would give a rat's ass about that. Neither of them are prone to deck hopping. Neither of them are prone to step cut in corners. Both of these decks stay nice and flat no matter what you're doing, bumps, whatever. Like the yard is, of course, contoured, contoured as any other yard. And they both cut absolutely phenomenal. The deck on the Cub Cadet is at 42 instead of a 46. But I mean, that's marginal 4-inch difference between the two. I mean, if you were looking at cutting 6 acres, yeah, okay, it might take this thing a hair longer than the Craftsman, but I mean, again, that's Cub Cadet sells machines of all sizes, so the frame on the Craftsman's a bit beefier. You can't really tell when you're driving. You know, the frames are designed to flex when you're going over large bumps. Like they'll articulate a little bit. They'll articulate a little bit, but ultimately they both do the same thing. I'm not sure if the heavier frame rail of the Craftsman's helping me out any when I'm pushing snow with it. I like to think so. But honestly, I really don't know. I do know, however, when I'm pulling the drag through the gravel, that the Cub Cadet, and that could just be engine weight too, the Cub Cadet is inclined to have its direction, like have its path altered by the load of gravel that the drag has picked up. So you got to give it a little bit more spirited steering input when you're trying to make a corner while pulling heavy. I basically am just right. I had written that off even at the time while running the machine due to the difference in weight between the two power plants. I would hazard that having, you know, probably 40 or 30 additional pounds of engine hanging directly over top of the front wheels versus the more modest Kohler probably had everything and then some to do with the fact that I lost. It is very little steering. It was very minor. When I was turning the corner, you can kind of see in the driveway the very abrupt turn. The machine was kind of being pushed or pulled in one direction, the direction opposite the where the drag wanted to go. So I wrote that off just a lack of weight over the front wheels. That could, and I mean very much could, be amplified if you were to attach a plow to the front of the Cub Cadet. Because even with my Briggs & Stratton, and I weigh 250 pounds, the plow will try to push the front end over. And in the wintertime, like I'm running next to no pressure in the front tires, like I try to set the machine up as best I can. I notice that it's getting pushed when you're really trying to move a good windrow of snow over. So I would be willing to bet my bottom dollar that would just be further exacerbated by the difference in weight between the two engines. Ultimately speaking, my consensus is these are very comparable machines. If you're looking for something that you could put like a rototiller attachment on, I would have to say, or push snow with, or pull a drag with, or maintain your property. These you can buy like lever operated loader attachments for them and all that stuff. I just bought the plow and I pull a drag with it and I use it to, you know, buck hay when the grass down by the river gets to be out of control. If you're looking for a machine that you know, will do virtually anything you can come up with, my money would be on the Craftsman. We paid $2,400 after taxes for this unit, and like I said before, it's been virtually trouble-free outside of a belt and blades. Broke one of the headlight wires. That was my own doing. But otherwise, no, really good. If you're, yeah, like I said, if you're looking for a machine that will do literally anything within reason you could expect a machine its size to accomplish, that Craftsman would be the way to go. If you're looking for a very, 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 very well equipped unit for right around the $2,000 mark, taxes in, the Cub Cadet is exactly what you're after if you're not planning on pushing snow with it. Or that's not to say it can't push snow. Like there's probably somebody out there, or many people out there, that would argue the Cub Cadet is a better machine than the Craftsman. But I would say, in terms of meat and potatoes, it'll be the Craftsman all day. Even the material that the deck is made out of, even the way the deck is assembled, between the two machines, there's little comparison. The Craftsman is just a heftier machine, and you can certainly tell operating it. But if you're looking for something that's going to do an excellent job of cutting your grass, and if you needed to pull your wagon around, or hell, I mean, even push snow, you can do whatever you want with it. If you're looking for an excellent machine for around $2,000, or you're looking to add a second machine to your team, as my wife and I were, absolutely a great buy. There was zero buyer's remorse whatsoever with this machine. I looked at Cub Cadet, of course, their reputation speaks for itself. I mean, one's got a metal hood, and the Cub Cadet's got a plastic hood. I guess negligible difference, really. Both great looking machines. This one looks like a wasp. I like it. I think it's got its own character. And the Craftsman, that's a little aftermarket tidbit there. A youngster had driven it into a tree, and that was covering up a good sized scratch. The Craftsman is certainly a fine looking machine as well. Both superb. My hat's off to the Cub Cadet. I rather like the ease of steering, as does the wife. Also, the hydrostatic controls here are easier to operate. That's not to say that the Craftsmans are hard to operate, but I mean, you got to really split hairs to, like, outside of frame and of course engine. I don't even really want to make that comparison, because we didn't buy this Cub Cadet to do what the Craftsman does. We bought it as a second mower. You really gotta nitpick to put one above the other in any one category, but this short, stupid little reverse lever, like, it can get hot. Not the lawnmower, well, the lawnmower, because it's actually a lot of air blowing out of here, out of this ventway here, and a bunch of it ends up on your feet. So the Craftsman, when you're operating it barefoot, not that we recommend that, this reverse pedal can get kind of irritating to use because it's hard on the feet. But that's a pretty nitpicky thing to do, or nitpicky rather. The Cub Cadet also has cruise, or I guess air quotes here, cruise. The Craftsman has a cruise lock, and so does the Cub Cadet. They'll lock, either of them will lock in pretty much any speed you want. Pretty handy dandy, especially when you got a yard the size of ours. One thing my wife did like a lot, actually, is the fact that the seat is an open back, as opposed to the Craftsman, which is not. I guess you can, when you're sitting on it for a few hours, you can start to sweat, and that one lets your back breathe far easier than the Craftsman does. I'm a big fella. I like the armrests. I haven't been on this one yet long enough to tell you whether or not the armrests are absolutely necessary, but like I said, pretty nitpicky to find differences. There are more than just minor quibbles between the two. Awesome machines, the pair of them. They both have, looks to be the same size tire and rim setup. The belt on the Craftsman's a hair thicker, but that's an aftermarket belt, and that is the OE belt. And I guess we'll have a gander there. OE belt. And the Craftsman has an aftermarket jobby. Well, maybe they're very close to the same size anyway. The belt that I put on this one was I forget the brand, but it's supposed to be some reinforced fucking thing, I don't know. It cost me about $85 at a farm supply dealer in the next town. And it's rated for this engine size. Anyway, it's capable of handling up to 32 horse. So I don't know, it's supposed to be some, I don't even know. It blew the OE belt like within the second year, and we kept using it. It would shake the deck and stuff like that. So finally last year, at the end of the year, we both had enough of it. So I took the deck guards off of this one, the belt guards. It had belt guards on it. I took it off so that it was easy to clean. I like to keep the decks clean. This one, same thing. These ones are going to be coming off. They're not a complete cover like the Craftsman had, but I want to have them removed so that I can clean the deck easy. We don't get debris pile up in there, blah, 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 blah. Heat the bearings up, bearing failure, yada, yada kind of thing. That's more of a maintenance thing on my end than anything. Ultimately, both great machines. Depending on what you want to do with them. A friend of mine's convinced that the Cub Cadet's going to outlast the Craftsman. And you know what? It probably will. The Craftsman runs year round, and I certainly do heavier work with it. We use it to tow, like, there's a bunch of deadfall in the back bush line. We use it to tow deadfall out, pieces of tree, wind damaged trees, all that stuff. If you can get the grip with it, just for actually shits and giggles, I towed it's gone now, but we have not gone, the old lady has it right now. She's out walking the dog. We have a 2001 F-150 style side lariat. Nice truck. Just for shits and giggles, I was half in the bag and I decided to see if our lawn tractor would pull it. And oh yeah, it pulled it right down the driveway and up the approach. So I noticed too, while using the drag, that the Cub Cadet protested, and again, the difference is very marginal. Like I had to actively listen for any sign of protest. I was very much looking for differences in pulling power. I was very much looking for differences in cutting. Just to kind of make this comparison. I wouldn't want to be pushing snow with this thing in the winter time, or dragging the drag when it's plus 30, like I do with the Craftsman. Only because of the difference in cooling fan diameter and the physical difference in size between the two final drives. The Cub Cadet again had very little issue pulling the drag, even when it really loaded up with gravel and it got good and heavy. Pull Sagittarius pull. I mean, this thing did great. I just wouldn't want to damage it. I have a machine that I know is very much capable of doing it, and I wouldn't want to wreck or put it in a position where it could potentially be harmed or overheated or stressed unduly, because I have a machine that the cooling fins are bigger, the fan's bigger. The assembly appears to be an inch or so taller and about the same in overall width. I think that the Craftsman is just a little bit better fit for that sort of work. So for that reason, and that reason alone, I would, outside of testing or being forced into that position, not do that sort of work with the Cadet. And again, because there's somebody that's going to protest that it can do it, and I'm not saying that it can't do it. It did it. I did it with it. Outside of pushing snow, of course, 'cause I only had the thing since yesterday. It's capable. It's very capable of doing it. I'm sure it would be just hunky-dory doing it. Pulling the drag, pulling the wood out of the bush, or not like bush, but pulling, pieces of tree out of the tree line and all that other stuff. I'm sure it would be just fine doing it. But I have a larger machine for that reason, so I would stick to using the larger machine, again, for that reason. But yeah, you're pretty nitpicky. Noise levels. The Craftsman, park brake's not on. Craftsman's got quite the startup sound. It sounds like a legit V-twin. I don't know if this is going to get it any. Let's open up the hood and let you have a gander. Oops. Noise levels are low. Cutting is about what you'd expect. Working hard, it'll get loud. Even in the wintertime, it's been an easy starter. It's always been a trooper. I've had it out, minus 37, minus 40. You just give it a while to warm up, just kind of sit on the seat with the park brake release so that the hydrostatic pump is turning, and just kind of let it turn, sit there for a couple of minutes and just let her get warmed up. I don't know about any of you guys, but I don't like it when somebody starts riding my ass as soon as I get out of bed, so I try to have the same respect for my machines. Cutting noise is pretty standard issue. Running noise is pretty low. The Cub Cadet is louder, but it's also a great big one-lunger, so I half expected that. Cutting noise between the two, pretty similar. When you put the V-twin to work, the volume comes up. Not like alarmingly up to where you need to worry about wearing ear protection, but it does get noticeably louder. I'm pretty sure that would go with just about anything. This guy too, same thing. It definitely sounds like a large single cylinder. Cutting noise is similar. When the engine gets under load, same thing. Volume comes up. Turn the key back, push the button, red light comes on, cut backwards. So, same thing, volume comes up when the engine goes under load. That's anything. You start getting, of course, excess fuel, induction noise, all that crap. Very strong engine. I thought it wasn't going to have as much torque as it did, but it's superb. Engine's got a ton of power. It'll cut whatever you put underneath it. I was cut, like I said, I was cutting the back 40. It was doing perfect. Did a good cut through the back 40. No step cutting, no deck hopping, nothing irregular. Ultimately, both excellent machines. That's just some paper. It was on the floor model. I didn't want to have to deal with a crate, so I opted to take this one instead. So both ultimately excellent machines. I will not be using the Cub Cadet in the wintertime, provided nothing comes of my Craftsman. And yeah, I have no idea if this review has helped anybody at all. But if you're looking for a good tractor, either of these two are excellent choices. Be it whether you buy this as a Husqvarna or a Craftsman, whichever. Or you're after, you know, something that can impress your neighbors just sitting there. Both of excellent quality. Both do the same sorts of jobs. And both excellent choices. Paid a little more for the Craftsman than we did for the Cub. But when the Cub is not on sale, it's about $100 less than what I paid for the Craftsman. And with the Craftsman, I was getting like what appears to be a better built, so to speak, a heftier, let's just call it, a heftier machine, especially for the money, than the Cub Cadet. So I don't know if this review would help anybody at all, or maybe somebody's just interested in watching it. But both great machines, and will both give you many years of problem-free service. We're hoping the Cub Cadet works as well as the Craftsman. has over the next few years. But so far, our impression of this machine is excellent, and we have absolutely no complaints with it whatsoever. So I hope this helped. Thanks.